a lot of people are so interested on like how much does it really cost to put together a concert, especially if the person that's having a concert, the artist that's having a concert, is somebody like a BTS member, J-Hope, Suga. As we know, Suga is one of the most ambitious concert there is. Like he has an actual concept in the concert, and he actually built a stage in every stop. In almost every stop, there were some venues that had technical limitations, so they couldn't implement the concept that he had. But for the most part, like those stages that were, so he had, the stage was actually in Suga's concert, the stage was split. It was divided into six, and so one panel will actually go up, one after the other, on certain stages of the concert until there was nothing left. It was just him on the floor singing. Yeah, it was beautiful, and it's not just beautiful. Like there's an actual concept, and I guess that is why it is beautiful, because there's an actual concept behind it. So the question a lot of people are asking is that, but how much did he actually take home from it? Because last week, sorry, not last week, but in the last live stream, I discussed how much the breakdown of the 1.854 million, that who earned from the US. Okay. So, and I said in that live stream, I said that Jimin probably took home about 30% or lower, usually about 30% or lower. And some of you were like, 30%? Why would you give away so much? Okay, so let's go through it. As you know, Suga's D-Day concert earned 57.2 million, 28 sold out shows. And he has the highest grossing tour by a South Korean soloist in history. I'm sure that like me, all of you are so proud of him, and that he could have actually earned more if he listened to the recommendation of Big Hit to actually do a stadium concert. He declined. The demand for tickets was, my god, the demand was just out of this world. He really could have filled the stadium, but our guy is too humble. um, okay, so Suga's D-Day tour in Kia Forum in Inglewood in California uh, actually earned 3.164 million each night. So that would be 9.5 in the 3 nights that he had the show in Inglewood. All right. So the question is that a lot of you are asking, like, so how much did he actually take home? For us to know how much the approximate is, I will never know how much he actually took home, but at least the approximate. Um, so we need to know how much a concert would actually cost, right? Okay. So renting a stadium like SoFi, Allegiant, if it is a stadium, it's going to cost you about 1.2 to 1.8 million per night. Okay. And one of the reasons is that you actually are not going to go there just for one night. If you're going to have a one night concert, you're going to have to be there the day before to set up and test and all of those things. So it's not just one night. So anyway, it's 1.2 to 1.8 for a stadium. Okay. And you can see this. I know this personally, like directly. I know this because I've done events before. But if you want like an exact reference and you just want to see where that number was mentioned, you can go to this article. It was written by Ray Waddell, but it was back in 2014, and he mentioned how much it is. Okay. For Madison Square Garden, which is actually considered an arena, just a little bigger, about 1,000 more in capacity than Kia Forum. It's about 400,000 back in 2006. So right around this year, probably 600, 500, 600, 550, maybe 600,000, but it was 400,000 back in 2006, and it was mentioned in a Deadspin article written by David Bixenspan. All right. So in this article, they said that it's right around 400,000 to open the door. When that term is used, to open the door, that means everything is included, including personnel for the building, not the concert, but for personnel for the building, like security, all of those stuff. That would be that's what they mean when they say to open the door, about 400,000. Now, in a concert, of course, there are other costs outside of the venue. There will be security, food, makeup, lights, and sounds. A lot more expenses go into it. For event security, the national average price, this is just the average price, would be 400,000 for 4 hours for a security, for an event security. Now, there are different securities. There's armed security, there is unarmed security, there is uniformed security, there is event security, personal security. So, what we're looking for is event security. So, there's personal security, like bodyguards, and then there's event security. For an event security, it's right around 20 to 35, but this is several years ago. So they're probably right around 50, 55, maybe even 60 nowadays. That's per hour. Okay, that's an hourly cost. Now, the recommended number of securities per audience number is 1 is to 100. So there should be, if you have 16,000 people in the venue, for example, I'm estimating how many people will actually be accommodated in J-Hope's concert. So BMO is 22,000, so let's say he accommodates 16,000. It's about, so if the ratio is 1 to 100, then there will be 160 security people. If the rate is 50 per hour, that's about 88,000. Sorry, about 8,000 per hour. You're spending 8,000 per hour. And there will be, so if it's going to be 8 hours, if security will be called in for 8 hours, then you are looking at 64,000 for one entire day, for 1 8 hour day, for all of your 160 security personnel. Now, this is just event security. We're not even talking about the personal security of the staff, of the backstage, and the artist itself. Okay, so that's a separate expense, and they usually are more expensive. So if you are in the US, for example, if J Hope comes into the US, usually they bring their bodyguards, but they reinforce it with bodyguards that are actually based here in the US because it's cheaper in than flying their entire security team. And also you just need more, especially in a concert. Okay, so that's a separate thing. Now for dancers here usually they have their group. So, for example, this Dancers Alliance is a union. That's what the word that I was looking for. Usually, dancers have unions. Dancers Alliance is a union of dancers, and they set the rate on how much you are going to get paid per day. So, for example, for rehearsal, that is paid. If it is an 8 hour rehearsal, you're going to get paid $450. If you go more than 8 hours, then that is time and a half. So 8 hours divided by 450, that's how much you're getting paid, time and a half. 1 hour and a half per every hour that's considered overtime. On the show itself, during the concert, you're going to get paid 925 minimum. Okay, minimum per show or per shoot day. That's a minimum. Now they also implement other rates like weekly tour rate. Like if you're going to go perform in different locations, you can just get them paid per week. So it's 2650 $2,650. There's also payment for travel or retainers. That's 220. So for example, if you want the same set of dancers in Chicago to go to Texas and then California, you want to bring them so that you don't have to keep on rehearsing and do all of those stuff. Then you do need to pay them 220 per travel. This is over and above their rehearsal and all of those stuff. The rehearsal rate and stuff. Okay. And then there's a per diem. So if they take you on days that you're not doing anything, you're not going to rehearse or whatever, they do need to provide you per diem. domestic. If it is outside of the US, it's 120. So if you would remember, I think that was J Hope who actually, not J Hope, Jungkook who actually brought the US dancers to Hungary or Portugal. Where did he shoot? Standing next to you. So it was the same set of dancers. So they had to travel. So he paid them the travel fee of 220 minimum. Of course, they had to pay the tickets and all of those stuff. And then they also had to pay them per diem. Okay. And then there's like hazard rates. There's also a condition on what kind of tickets you have to buy them. If the, where is that? If the flight is more than 6 hours in length, it has to be economy plus or business class. So you can't just give them economy if they need to travel more than 6 hours. If it is 6 hours or less, it has to be at least economy, premium economy, or you have to give them extra leg space. Those are conditions. Okay. If you call them on a separate day to fit their costumes and all, you also need to pay them $60 per hour. And if you ask the dancers to bring their own clothes, you need to pay them 50 per outfit, and 40 per pair of shoes. All right. So, for example, they say just bring like a white shirt and black pants, then you need to give them 50 for that, even if they've owned that for like some time already. Doesn't matter. You still need to pay them $50. Okay. And then you need to provide for makeup, for hair, for nails. You need to give them food. You need to pay for accommodation. You need to provide for transportation. Everything that they would need during the travel, you need to pay for that. Of course, insurance. Now there are other rates like for SAG-AFTRA. I'm sure for those that are in America, you're very familiar with SAG-AFTRA. This is the actors union. They also have a separate rate for dancers, but it's almost the same. It's just that it's a different organization. This one's a little higher. So almost the same thing. Rehearsal is 275. Rehearsal overtime is 40 per hour. $40 if performer is asked to bring any specific wardrobe item. So almost the same rate. Okay, so remember this rate. So I computed, for example, J Hope has 20 dancers. I don't know how many dancers he's going to have, but for example, he's going to have 20 dancers. Since they are paid almost 900, almost 1 grand per performance day, then that would translate to 200,000 for 10 shows in the US if he wants to keep the same crew. Now, that's just for the performance. There is a rehearsal. They usually make changes along the way. So every time he calls everybody for a rehearsal per day, he's going to be paying them. So I estimated all the rehearsal days probably 100,000, and then there's travel, per diem, food, and insurance. That is if he is going to keep the same crew in the entire travel, in the entire tour in the US. Okay. Now outside of the dancers, of course there's lights, right? Because there has to be somebody operating and designing the lights. There's the lighting designer, and usually they package this. There are actually three people: lighting designer, lighting technician, and lighting operator. Usually you just get one group, or you talk to the designer and he will be the one that will recruit everybody else who's going to work in his crew. But usually I pegged it like 50,000 for 10 shows. A lot of people are going to say, probably that's not enough or whatever. That's just a peg. Okay. So for the lighting designer, the one who's going to actually design the lights, decide how the mood of the light is going to match or help enhance the message of the song, about 50,000 per show, especially if it's a 3 month or 2 month show. That's not long enough. I mean, that's a short tour. 50,000, that's pretty good. Okay. And then lighting technician, let's say 10,000. These are really like low. Lighting technician 10,000, lighting operators 10,000. There's more than one lighting technician, there's more than one lighting operator. Okay, and then you have the lighting designer. This person actually plans the designs. Okay. All right. And then you have sound. So this is the person that's actually responsible for what the audience is going to hear during the show. Okay. There are different crews in that group. There's the front of the house. He's the boss. Like he's actually the one who's making sure that whatever you are going to hear is exactly what the artist wants you to hear. And then you have the monitor engineer, you have system technicians. These are the guys that are making adjustments, putting things together. You have audio technician, and then sometimes you also have a sound designer. Okay. So outside of that, aside from the sounds, you have wardrobe and you have makeup. Usually for makeup and for wardrobe, they bring their team, but they do ask for reinforcement in the US. They get people in the US to reinforce, because if there are production assistants who have very specific role. So for example, in a wardrobe team, there's actually somebody who needs to bring the clothes to the washer, right? So that's soaked in sweat. So after they take it off, somebody has to take all of those things, take it to the washer or dry wash or whatever is required, and make sure that that is back for the next round of use. So all of those things, like small things, you don't need to pay for somebody's flight from Korea to here to get those things done. You can just recruit somebody here. And then of course you have the creative director, which is the one that will be putting the vision of the artist, if the artist is participating in the creation, to actuality. And then you have the set designer and the stage designer. The set designer takes care of the props, things that they will be interacting with. So for example, for D-Day tour, he used a piano. So the set designer, it is under his responsibility to make sure that is brought, that someone is going to bring that. All of those the detail of the chains that's carrying the stage, that lifts up, that goes up, that's his responsibility. And the stage designer is the one that is designing the scenery. So if for example Suga says, okay, I want separate platforms that will go up and down, it's going to be the set designer who will make that a reality. Okay, and then you have production assistants, even the people that are giving water, making sure that Suga and J-Hope has water or whoever, that's a production assistant. You can recruit that here. You don't need to fly that from the US unless the artist wants it. Other costs, permits, insurance, medic and ambulance, you have to pay for that. Travel, hotel, and or accommodation, incidents, equipment, set, incidentals. This is a big cost. Usually it's a percentage of the entire cost. Coverage or photography, and then band, if it is going to be a live band, like Suga has a live band, that's a separate cost. So if Suga's D-Day tour in Kia Forum actually earned 3.164 million. The question is how much was actually spent to put together the concert. The base cost is about 1.2 million per show. This is base cost, base. So this is the minimum. It's probably more. That set is expensive. It's very expensive. And remember, that set they had to actually bring from location to location. That's very, very expensive. And so the 1.2 is just base. So we don't know how much it's going to, we don't know the set of J Hope yet. Um, so I guess we'll know once we see how much it's going to cost, or at least if it's going to be that expensive, less expensive, or if it's going to be simple or whatever. So whatever is left, that is divided between the label, the management, artist, and concert promoter. That is how the 30% was derived, because 1.2 is almost half of 3 million, right? Almost, not quite, but that is just the base expense. And out of that, you take out taxes. For example, whatever is left, you take out taxes, that's another 20-30% gone. And then you have whatever is left. And so it is not possible for the artist to get like 70% of what they earned. It's usually about 30. You're lucky if it's going to be 40. But the article that I showed you, that says it's like 30 is the maximum, usually nothing more than that. And then you have two groups. The concert promoter, this is they're focusing on security, is on the securing the promotion, securing the venue. And then you have the concert organizers who are actually putting the concert together in the US or whatever venue that they have. So if D-Day earned 57.2 million and he got 20%, Suga got 20%, that means he banked 11.4 million. If he got 30%, that means he banked 17.1. And he did the tour for about 3 months, 11.7 or sorry, 17.1 or 11.4. That is not bad. Am I right? Do you think that's bad? I do not think that's bad. So I keep on buffering. Um, Question: this just shows how much our guys love army. um they have to pay electricity. Yes, they have to pay electricity or whatever. There's a lot more fees in there. That is why, as I've said, the 30% is actually usually the maximum that they can get. It's usually lower than 30%. And I remember Eminem was, it was a long time ago, that's why I couldn't anymore find the footage, but he did talk about it. He said that at some point in his career, he decided, okay, I'm really going to sit down and look at my expenses. And that's when he realized, my God, I'm just taking home 30% of the entire thing, that of my entire earnings. And so that really depressed him until he realized, but if I do not spend that 70%, I won't have that 30% because that's just how it goes. And remember, in the US, like an agent is 10%. If you have an agent for any kind of project, that they automatically get 10%. So, and then he has a manager whom he really, really loves. His name is Paul. He gets 10%, right? So that's already 20% out the door for him. And then you have taxes, like a good 20%, maybe 15 if he's lucky, but probably 20. So that's already 40% away from his gross. So that's, it's really, he's really left with like 30% at, at most. But as I've said, like if you look at it, 57.2 million, and he bags, like if he got 30%, 17 million in 3 months, that is not bad at all. A group I had managed back in the day, we had to pay. So yeah, it really depends on, and there's like, I think in California there's like environmental fee, environmental tax that you need to pay. There's it's different from city to city, or state to state. 30% in our love, which is priceless, right? It is priceless. I mean, 30%, and then all the merch that we buy. This is just, I was just talking about like the price of the concert, like the ticket price. But they didn't even disclose how much they sold in merch. And as we know, for merch, that actually is they net better. They earn better in merch because there is no artist participation in that, right? Like it goes to the manufacturer, they make the merch, and then it goes to the customer. Like the artist isn't participating in that process. So that merch is actually where the billions are.